Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Sunday Night Live. Now, we will be live with you in the chat, but this is recorded earlier, and you're in for a big treat tonight. Absolutely love him. Here he is. Peter Brierley is the Secretary of the Blavatsky Lodge. Peter has been studying spirituality for 20 years and has a special interest in the mystical path, which is manifested in most of the world's religions, although often suppressed. Peter studied with the One Spirit Interfaith Foundation from 2008 to 2010 to get an experiential understanding of world faiths and to explore their common meaning of the teachings. Peter spent 22 years in Banking I.T, which involved international travel and the opportunity to work in Asia for 2 years as an expat. Peter has worked as a charity worker for Mind and as a volunteer, which is a beautiful thing to do, for the bereavement counseling with CRUSE. Ladies and gentlemen, coming up tonight, we have Peter Brierley with personalities and their connection with one of my favorite subjects, and yours too, karma and reincarnation. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Brierley. Welcome, Peter.
It's a great pleasure to be here tonight with the lovely host, Anne. I've had to do a lot of research on this this subject. It's always interested me, but before I start on the presentation, I'd just like to say, you know, I'm a student of Theosophy. I'm no expert, so I would encourage everybody to do their own research. Okay. Also, you know, in life, it's good to look out for signposts that pop up now and again. They're usually there for a reason. So this is how I got into Theosophy. Anyway, I'll move into the presentation now. Okay, so this talk is on the personality. Okay, so if a good place to start is look at the etymology of that word, personality. The term personality has been derived from the Latin word persona, which means mask, was associated with Greek theatre in ancient times. The Greek actors commonly used to wear masks on their faces during their performance on the stage. The mask worn by the actors was called persona. Personality was thought to be the effect and influence which the individual wearing a mask left on the audience. Now, in psychology, you know, when I did research this, you could research the psychology of this, and there's so many different views out there on what actually makes up our personality. And you know, the psychologists have defined the term personality in various ways, but they were not completely successful in explaining it in clear and definite terms, because human behavior is very complex and personality is not a fixed state, but a dynamic totality, which is continuously changing due to interaction with the environment. So we know, you know, if you think about personality, how all-encompassing it is, you know, it affects our mental, our physical, our emotional. I mean, an example might be, you know, traumas that we may go through in life, and then the thing that could affect our personality might be like PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. You know, so many things affect personality, and as you said here, certainly our environment. In psychology, this kind of the 5 big theories here, or traits of the personality. There's openness, consciousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. I'm sure we all can identify that stages of our life. But this is just tip of the iceberg. There are, you know, when you research this, there's many more out there. Now, I love this quote by Shakespeare, the man himself, you know, taken from his play As You Like It, and he says, you know, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. Now, I am going to go through the 7 ages just because I just love this. Sorry if I'm being a bit self-indulgent.
No, it's
But
okay.
what Shakespeare is saying here is that, you know, as we go through life, you know, our personality changes somewhat. You know, from childhood, you know, we can all think of, you know, our own lives, how we've changed, you know, from, you know, you can think when we were a 21-year-old and we thought everything was, we were indestructible, very confident maybe. And then as we get older, things change. So if you'll bear with me, I'll play the, I'm going to go through the quote, the part of the play. He says, at first the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, then whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail, unwillingly to school, and then the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad, made to his mistress eyebrow, then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honour, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation, even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice in fair round belly, with a good cape on line, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side. His useful hose, well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank and his big manly voice, turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange eventful history is second childishness and near oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. Now, that kind of gives a good description of the stages of life that we go through and how our personality changes, doesn't it, in life? And you will see, you know, with people when they get to the golden years of their life, you know, they sometimes go in 2 directions. One might be, you know, their personality is such that they're veering towards, you know, regret. They wish they did this, they wish they did that. And other people onto growth, you know, spiritual growth, where they're thinking, you know, that they're learning and they're moving on, and everything they've learned is taking them in a spiritual direction. You do see this kind of fork in the road with people when they get older. And obviously in Theosophy, we would recommend that we take the spiritual approach. A great quote from Martin Luther King. 2 things define your personality: the way you manage things when you have nothing, and the way you behave when you have everything. It's beauty that captures your attention, personality that captures your heart. I use bits and pieces of other personalities to form my own. Of course, we can all do this. You know, we can all see people we admire in life, and you know, if part of our personality isn't serving us, you know, just say we're, you know, a bit on the jealous side, or, you know, we have some trait in our personality we can always learn from other people. There's great role models in it. Now, one of the big questions in psychology regarding personality is it nurture or is it nature? We've looked at the personality traits, there's many of them. The nature versus nurture debate is a long-standing one, and it has never been completely resolved. Every time a new research makes a revelation, the understanding of nature versus nature personality traits is revisited, and a new dimension is often the outcome. Nature is a person's innate attributes or quality. It is referred to as nativism. Nurture is a person's acquired attributes or qualities that have been developed through various circumstances, experiences, and grooming. This is referred to as empiricism, as well as behaviorism. In that sense, nature doesn't have much to do with personality traits, since they can all be developed. Behaviorism can be honed or influenced by circumstances, learning, socio-economic and environmental factors, experiences, and special initiatives. However, as it turns out, nature and nurture both play a significant role in personality traits. Genes don't typically play a role in personality traits. An outspoken father or mother may have an introvert son or daughter. Confident parents may have kids with low self-esteem. There is a paradox, dominant and recessive genes, but delving into that aspect will be futile, since the argument will always hang in balance without any decisive resolution or understanding. Personality traits that are by the virtue of nature are usually more robust, and they tend to stick around for a longer period of time. Nurture, unless effective, will have very little impact. New traits can be developed with nurture quite conveniently. It is getting rid of old natural traits or replacing them that is hard. It is very easy for natural personality traits to recur or prevail over acquired traits or nurtured traits. It only takes a trigger or the absence of the nurturing environment for the natural personal traits to have dominance. In the battle of nature versus nurture, personality traits, it is a willpower and conviction, or the lack of it in the person concerned, that always emerges as the winner. So in willpower is something, you know, we know much about as a force for change in Theosophy. You know, as humans, one of the things that differentiates us over animals is that we have willpower. We know by listening to our inner voice, we can make positive changes that move us forward spiritually. Now, moving on to Theosophy and its view on personality. HPB, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, writes much. There's much in there. I've only, just got the bits and pieces here and there, but there's much written by her about personality, as was by the masters. HPB says in the Key to Theosophy, we Theosophists therefore distinguish between this bundle of experiences, which we call the false, because it's so finite and evanescent, personality, and the element in man to which the feeling of I am I is due. It is this I am I which we call the true individuality. And we say that this ego or individuality plays like an actor, many parts on the stage of life. One night the actor, or ego, appears as Macbeth, the next as Shylock, the third as Romeo, the fourth as Hamlet or King Lear, and so on, until he has run through the whole cycle of incarnations. So there she's making the point, and will come over again and again in this presentation. There is the difference between personality, which is false. It's a persona, it's a mask, and we can, in each respective life, because obviously in Theosophy we believe in the concept of reincarnation. In each life we play a different part, but we are not that part. The true spiritual ego is our individuality, which is immortal, and that is part of our higher self. So coming back to Theosophy and the septenary nature of man, we know this teaching tells us that we're made up of 7 parts, which the 7 constituents are really split 4 and 3, 4 being limited to our life here on earth and they die with us, and 3 parts that are spiritual and they go on forever. They don't die with us, but there is a kind of merging back into that spirituality when we die. So again, from the Key to Theosophy, Manas is the 5th principle, which is a mind which is dual. There's a higher and a lower Manas, and during a human lifetime, an individual can affect his or her spiritual destiny by their actions and by cultivating the mind through spiritual development. Alternatively, they can stay rooted in base animal desire and instinctive behavior. So there we have two choices. If you look at the 7 phases there, the personality is pointing down to Karma Rupa, to the animal desires. It's temporary, like, our physical body is temporary. Our individuality, which is linked to our higher self, is part of Buddhi Manas, and will move with that when we die. That will, that is accessible through the Rainbow Bridge, but it's not evident for everybody. We have to awaken to be able to know this higher part of ourselves. And HPB goes on to say that the future state and the karmic destiny of man depend on whether Manas gravitates more downward to Karma Rupa, which is our animal desires and passions, the seat, or upwards to Buddhi, the spiritual ego. And that's where individuality, which we take from life to life, resides. In the latter case, the higher consciousness of the individual spiritual aspirations of mind Manas, assimilating Buddhi, are absorbed by it and form the ego, which goes into Devachanic bliss. So what we're saying is we're kind of agreeing here with the psychologists that, the mind can be cultivated. It's just like a garden can be cultivated. So the personality is dynamic, and if we use our willpower to good effect, we can make changes for the better, and this will affect us in this life and in future incarnations. Okay, so we know when we're talking about our consciousness, we have this thing called a conscience. We all have a conscience, and this conscience is really our higher self kind of knocking on the door, giving us hints, and maybe warning us when we're going to make a bad move. A lovely book, Joe Piper, Man, a Universe in Miniature, which is one of the introductory books to Theosophy, which is very good because it's very clearly written. Joy says that whilst he is busily engaged in making his way through life, whatever direction it may take, although his inner nature may be overshadowed by all this intense activity at the material level, it is by no means lying dormant. In some mysterious fashion, the higher self maintains a state of ever becoming, always conscious of the life of the personality, and constantly exerting pressure from above onto the lower self as a reminder of the existence of his inner spiritual being. It is this constant pressure from the higher self which is the voice of man's conscience, whether or not he chooses to listen to it. Now that's the big thing. We have a conscience. Not always do we listen to it. And sometimes, we keep on making the same mistake over and over again, don't we? We've all done it. And now for a little bit of fun here from Albert Einstein. Now, what happens when we stop listening to our conscience and we keep repeating the same mistake? Well, Albert Einstein, obviously that famous theoretical physicist, said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So this is the important thing. So we know we have this personality. We know this personality, is quite fickle in a way. It plays different parts. Many things can affect it. Our life's journey can affect it. Physical things can affect it. But we would say also in Theosophy, and we're coming on to this shortly, is that karma affects our personality. So Theosophy believes in the concept of reincarnation. And have we just explored that personality is part of the lower four principles of the septenary nature of man, and only exists while we are living. When we die, the temporary role we play in each life play ends its performance and the personality perishes. As with our mortal remains, it does not follow us into Devachan, and in Theosophical speech, that is, a temporary, vivid, dreamlike state of rest between each earth life. It would be quite cruel if we were to take our fickle personality, which may cause us some direct or indirect suffering on earth, with us after we die. The belief is that the soul joins the oversoul, and only the positive aspects of our past existence follow us into Devachan. We enjoy a well-deserved rest in a blissful state, unaware of what is happening to our family left on earth. So we don't want that kind of personality linked into our lower ego with all its good things and bad things, follow us into Devachan, and we're in this blissful state, and we're fretting over with our personality. So what HPB teaches us, and she comes on to say this shortly, is that we're only taking the positive aspects of us to, with our immortal part into Devachan. The lower part of our personality, all the negative stuff that we're working through, but may have not fixed in one lifetime, stays behind. Okay, we'll go into more of that. In the Mahatma letters, it says that since the conscious perception of one's personality on earth is but an evanescent dream, that sense will be equally that of a dream in the Devachan, only 100-fold intensified. So much so indeed that the happy ego is unable to see through the veil the evils, the sorrows, and the woes to which those it loved on earth may be subject to. This is the thing, we in Theosophy, we don't believe that we're up in a, we have quite a view on mediumship, which is another subject entirely, but we don't believe that when we're in Devachan, or a kind of form of heaven, that we're up there, we in direct communication with people left on earth. That would be quite cruel if we had to sit up there, unable to do anything, watching what our loved ones were doing on earth. HPB says in the Key to Theosophy, when therefore it is stated that the personality dies with the body, it does not state all. The body, which was only the objective symbol of Mr. A or Mr. B, fades away with all its material skandhas. These are kind of bundles of attributes. We talk about this later, which are the visible expressions thereof, but all that which constituted during life the spiritual bundle of experiences, the noblest aspirations, undying affections, and unselfish nature of Mr. A or Mrs. B, clings for the time of the Devachanic period to the ego, which is identified with the spiritual portion of that terrestrial entity, now passed away out of sight. The actor is so imbued with the role just played by him that he dreams of it during the whole Devachanic night, which vision continues till the hour strikes for him to return to the stage of life to enact another part. But it says there quite clearly, only the noblest aspirations follow us into our dreamlike state. None of that negative stuff follows us. It still has to be worked on. HPB reminds us that it is easy to see that it is neither Mr. A, nor Mr. B, nor any of the personalities that periodically clothe the self-sacrificing ego, which are the real sufferers, but verily the innocent Christos within us. Hence, the mystic Hindus say that the eternal self, or the ego, the one in three and the three in one, is the charioteer or driver. The personalities are the temporary passengers, while the horses are the animal passions of man. It is then true to say that when we remain deaf to the voice of our conscience, we crucify the Christos, the divine principle of spirit within us. That reminds me very much of the Bhagavad Gita and the story of Krishna and Arjuna. Very, very, I think that's where that comes from. That dilemma between the higher and the lower self. But as HPB clearly says there, you know, if we remain deaf to the voice of our conscience, you know, that divine part of us that we're being reminded of, you know, we're going to stay deaf to it and not be able to benefit from it spiritually. So we talk about personality, and HPB tells us that personality is temporary. It's a persona, and we get a new one on every incarnation. Individuality is linked to the ego, the spiritual ego, the soul that will unite with the oversoul. And one way to think of that, I've put there a pearl necklace. If you think of each of those pearls as being lives, okay, that is the personality. You just go from pearl to pearl, but they're all held together with a piece of string or a chain. The chain is the individuality. That doesn't go anywhere. That's ours. That is ours for the whole of that Manvantara, that human existence. So again, from the key to Theosophy, the personality, which is the personal ego associated with lower mind, is individual and dynamic, but only temporary in a lifetime. It eventually perishes after death. Individuality is the spiritual ego associated with the higher mind, is our inner God, immortal, and is drawn back to the universal oversoul after death. Now, to quote HPB, it is that ego, that causal body, which overshadows every personality. Karma forces it to incarnate into, and this ego, which is held responsible for all the sins committed through and in every new body or personality, the evanescent masks which hide the true individual through the long series of rebirths. So the personality is a mask, it's hiding our true self. So where does karma fit into this? You know, HPB says that karma is the one law. Karma neither punishes nor rewards. It is simply the one universal law which guides unerringly and, so to say, blindly all other laws productive of certain effects along the grooves of the respective causations. When Buddhism teaches that karma is that moral kernel of any being, which alone survives death and continues in transmigration or reincarnation, it simply means that there remains naught after each personality, but the causes produced by it, causes which are undying, which cannot be eliminated from the universe until replaced by the legitimate effects and wiped out by them, so to speak. And such causes, unless compensated during the life of the person who produced them with adequate effects, will follow the reincarnated ego and reach it in its subsequent reincarnation until a harmony between effects and causes is fully re-established. So it's really important that karma isn't you know, just a punishment. It isn't a punishment at all. And I like you know, she's using the word it guides. But what we're saying, it's really not karma that's the problem. The problem is not listening and not making the changes to our personality so that we can correct or reharmonize our karma. And this will, if what we don't fix in one lifetime, those seeds are left behind and we have to pick them up again when we come back the next time round. This is an article that HPB wrote on karma and reincarnation. Intimately, or rather indissolubly connected with karma, then, is the law of rebirth, or the or of the reincarnation of the same spiritual individuality in a long, almost interminable series of personalities. The latter are like the various costumes and characters played by the same actor, with each of which that actor identifies himself and is identified by the public for the space of a few hours. The inner or real man who personates those characters knows the whole time that he is Hamlet for the brief space of a few acts, which represents, however, on the plane of human illusion, the whole life of Hamlet. And he knows that he was the night before King Lear, the transformation in his turn of the Othello of a still earlier preceding night. But the outer visible character is supposed to be ignorant of the fact. In actual life, that ignorance is unfortunately but too real. Nevertheless, the permanent individuality is fully aware of the fact, though through the atrophy of the spiritual eye in the physical body, that knowledge is unable to impress itself on the consciousness of the false personality. So this is where, that the Maya, the illusion that we live under. She mentions the spiritual eye there, and I guess in the past, certainly Aborigines and in the earlier eras were thought to have that spiritual, the third eye, the pineal gland here, and they had this kind of sixth sense. And I think what she's referring to there is that, in modern world, that this is kind of atrophied, and we don't really know our true self. We're quite often not aware of our true purpose. And if we're stuck in matter, then we're caught in this never-ending suffering of trying to acquire more and more material things and thinking that we're in this race against time, because if we don't acquire enough material things in one lifetime, we're gonna die, and it's all been for nothing, which would be very demoralizing. Okay, moving now on to skandhas. Okay, this is skandhas are referred to a lot in our incarnation as human beings, and they are really bundles or groups of attributes, everything finite, inapplicable to the eternal and the absolute. There are 5 esoterically, although 7 in Theosophy, in every human living being, which are known as the Pancha Skandhas, and they're broken down: Sanskrit rupa, form; Vedana, perception; Sajna, consciousness; Sanskara, action; and Vijnana, knowledge. So human life is a struggle, isn't it? Nothing comes easily. We have moments of great joy, moments of sadness. In her collective writings, Madame Blavatsky says the vices, the defects, and especially the passions of the preceding life become, through certain laws of affinity and transference, the germs of the future potentialities in the animal soul, Karma Rupa. Hence of its dependent, the astral double, Linga Sharira, at a subsequent birth. It is the personality alone which changes, the real reincarnating principle. The ego remains always the same, and it is its karma that guides the idiosyncrasies and prominent moral traits of the old personality that was, and that the ego knew not how to control. To reappear in the new man that will be, these traits and passions pursue and fasten on yet plastic third and fourth principles, Linga, Sharira, and Karma Rupa, of the child. And unless the ego struggles and conquers, they will develop with tenfold intensity and lead the adult man to his destruction. For it is they who are the tools and weapons of the karmic law of retribution. Thus, our good and bad actions are the only tools with which we paint our likenesses of death. For the new man is invariably the son and progeny of the old man that was. So we're saying, that when we die, eventually our personality dissolves. Our spiritual soul moves on and joins the oversoul. But if we think of this as a bit like, we're going on a journey, and imagine our personality is in a suitcase. We check in at the airport and we get on the plane and we go on our journey. We leave our personality behind. But we know when we get to our destination, which may be a synonym for being reborn, we have to pick up that suitcase with all of the seeds of the personality from the former life to carry on the work in order to balance the law of karma. We have to, karma is looking, for us to find harmony and balance, and it comes from us. So it's personality that causes the effects on karma, both good and bad. So karma does not punish us for our bad actions and misdemeanors. As HPB says, it guides us. It is entirely our responsibility to make amends. All karma does is try to restore balance and harmony due to the imbalance we have caused. As we've explored, the temporary personality does die with us. However, the seeds, the characteristics, the skandhas of our own making, from the skandhas we have developed in our lifetime, are kept in abeyance after death, so to speak, until we are ready to reincarnate in a new body. The unfinished business of our karma from past lives needs to continue its evolutionary journey, finding a new personality and part to play. To continue the work, we should see this as an opportunity to learn again by life's experiences and understand that human suffering is part of this process. The cycles of birth, death, and rebirth go on and on over thousands of lifetimes. Death should not be feared. It's just like changing a jacket or a snake shedding its skin. We have free will and can always change our skandhas, personality traits, by moderating the way we think, act, and live our lives. We can do this today and be masters of our own spiritual destiny. Food for thought, karma, nurture and nature. We can change our personality by positive use of our free will. Free will is our birthright. Thank you. I hope that's enough.
Oh, bless you. That was more than enough. Well done, Peter. Thank you so much. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Again, like I said, one of my very favorite subjects. And wouldn't the world be such a different place if we could just put this into practice and understand the cause and effect? It is the ultimate balance. It is the ultimate peacekeeper. I just believe there's so much value in what you shared, that if all of us took responsibility for our own lives and realized that we're the ones and our actions and our reactions and all of the causes that we create, this would make such a massive difference, would it not?
Yeah, and that's 100% true. I think this thing, a big sign of maturity is really taking personal responsibility and not taking life personally. That we all suffer terribly in life. We have issues with in childhood, and bad things happen to us. And everybody's asking that perennial question. Why do bad things happen to good people?
Mm-hmm.
Why do the good die young?
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it with a kind of karmic lens, it kind of takes the sting out of that. All of that is terrible, but we're just trying to work through, and it's by listening to that inner voice that is always there, that part of our individuality, part of the string of the pearl, that by listening to that, we're going to get hints as to, and nudges as to what we need to do next. And that's really, that gut feel, that inner voice is the signpost pointing us in the right direction. And then if we can differentiate between that and the personality, which is very kind of lower ego based, I'm better than you, I'm not good enough. We all know those personality traits. If we can differentiate, then we increase our awareness And that's what it is. It's awareness that we're more than this physical body and this personality. We're much more.
Absolutely. And the what you're talking about with the reincarnation, if we can understand that this is just a day, this is just a chapter, this is just a sentence or a word in a much, much, much bigger story, than dying young and good things happening to bad people and bad things happening to good people, and all those things that we try to untie in this one personal physical incarnation, makes more sense if we realize there's more to the story.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, you know, when you know, in life, and I like to think of this in Theosophy, you know, if you listen to your inner self, you're drawn to the right people.
Hmm.
You know, if you're stuck in the material side, and you know, I have been in the earlier part of my life, you know, then you know, you attract different people. So I think when you make, you know, when you start to feel you know, a kind of spiritual awakening, for want of a better word, you know, you get drawn to the right people. And I guess a lot of us would say that, who are into Theosophy, that we feel we're drawn to it because those teachings are helping us on our journey, on our path.
They are an instruction manual of magnificent proportions. And I find that even being in my own path and doing my own thing, I find that many people seem to be still, I know I was, as you say you were, stuck in the world of, as you called it, materialism, or the lower self, which is just going to work, making sure that you have a house and kids and money and food on the table, you watch TV, you go to sleep, and then you die. And that's what I don't understand, how we're still stuck. There's so much more out there. And then there's a lot of that is being perceived, being in the prison of being perceived by other people. They want fame and wealth and all that so they can feel important, but you are important already without those things, and you can't take those things with you. You can't. And it isn't about the eternal quest for those things. This is just a day. Just think of it as a day. And as Peter talked about in there, taking off these clothes, this physical biological meat suit, you get to take this off, but the you that is you continues to go. And the personality that you are today, I'm me today, a woman living in England, an American, and a student of Theosophy. Next time, who knows which planet and which place, but I don't end here. And that's very clear. So death, as a counselor in grief, were you ever able to share this kind of knowledge with them at all, about understanding that death is just, this is just the ending of this particular body, and that there's more to it? How did you do that?
Yeah, that's interesting, because you know, you're with people and they're trying to make sense of it, you know, and you know, I used to go to people's homes, and they, you know, there's some terrible tragedies.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable suffering. I mean, how do you talk to that, you know, to somebody, or say that there was any sort of you know, any sort of karmic element about it? I wouldn't even go there. But but I think what maybe is helpful to people, a lot of people I found in the grief are looking for somebody to blame initially, you know, those stages of grief we go through, you know. And you know, when you start talking to them and they explain what they've just been through with their loss, you know, they'll say things like, oh, you know, if only the ambulance got there quicker, you know, all the up in traffic, you know. If I hadn't have gone to the shops that morning, people would have been alive, you know. And so you get all of this beating yourself up. So I think what you're trying to, you know, you get to people or help people with in their grief is to some stage of acceptance. Yeah, saying it's not right, it's a terrible tragedy, but you may never learn to live with it, but can you accept this grief? You know, it's so that you can get on with your life, and you're not, you know, physically affected, or you know, you can't move on yourself. So and I think, you know, obviously acceptance that, you know, what the cards were dealt in life, you know, through karma, accepting that, you know, it's our responsibility, and not being personal about it, not blaming others, even if a great harm was done to us by somebody, but not necessarily blaming them. Maybe what I have to learn from the harm that person did to me was that it's teaching me something.
Yes, pain.
That's what I learned, rather than getting beat up. And you find this from people, very bitter, about the person that's died.
Yes.
He should have done this, and he was this, and he was that, and they never, it's really kind of, it's weighing them down, if they could let that go, and if we could find a way of just accepting that as a form of teaching, without personally absorbing it into us, because we know the physical effects of that is just going to be stress and anger, and all of the subsets of that are going to be terrible for us. So I think it's acceptance, and accepting, that we have this personality. We're doing our best. We're not perfect. We're going to make loads of mistakes, but we do have the key thing. We have free will. We can change if we want to.
That's very beautifully said. What a tough job that is, to be able to, I mean, the suffering, there's so much suffering here on this planet, and it truly is a place of great suffering. And thinking and understanding, the more that I spend time with the Theosophical teachings and the more that I apply them in my life, I still don't know anything, but I do know that I have a little bit more, I don't know, I want to say, when it comes to death, like, I don't know, it's just a bigger understanding that it isn't the end. And when you know that it isn't the end, that the you that is you continues to go on to another dimension, which isn't necessarily another place, but it isn't the last time. It isn't an ending. It's just so much easier to get my head around tragedies and things that I used to think were the end all, and they're not. There's more to the story. And you mentioned something there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about that you talked about. One of the quotes from the Secret Doctrine commentaries, talking about the crucifixion, which is a really beautifully put. When you do not access you don't go along with the evolution, that you keep this Christos, this divine spark inside of us, you keep it in a way as a prisoner of the animal passions, then that is the crucifixion of the Christ within. Could you expand on that a little bit? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, mine is only my own understanding through my own studies on this. Is that it's what's referred to as that inner Christos, inner Christ, inner Buddha, inner Krishna.
Yes.
And when my own understanding, which may not be 100% my own understanding, is that we have this capacity within us. And I think Madame Blavatsky says there that when we're deaf to it, we're wasting the opportunity, aren't we?
Yes.
And we can, through whatever method, meditation, study, we can tap in to our inner spiritual self. So my understanding is that we're all we have a part of us that is divine. That individuality is divine. And I think HPB there is referring to that inner Christos, Buddha, whatever. But not everybody knows it's there or cares it's there. Or, it's you notice in life, some people have spiritual leanings, and some people are very kind of dense, spiritually dense. They have no idea. They're not interested. And I think that's fair enough. Maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe that time will come.
Yeah, I understand. I find that many people think almost that the view that I might share on death might seem callous or disengaged, because, and I'm sure that you probably come across that too. It isn't callous or disengaged or not caring. It's just a matter of looking at it a little bit differently than I used to before. And I find that these teachings that are here in what Peter has talked about in Karma and Reincarnation, this is an absolute immutable law of balance and equilibrium that applies to everything. And there is no negotiation. You can't pay somebody to go remove the karma in Totnes for 5,000 quid. They can remove all your karma. That doesn't happen. You have to, as he was talking about, it must be balanced out. The cause must experience an equal effect. And everything that we do or say or think about another, however we made anyone or anything, any other being feel, we must experience it ourselves, and not necessarily in this lifetime. So there's no getting away with murder, is there, Peter?
No, there isn't, you know, and you know, you see that, you know, you can see some villain, you know, in life, and you can think, oh, he got away with it, you know, he's a billionaire, and you know, he got away with it. But you know, I think we know on the you know, on the spiritual level that that isn't the case. You know, everything has to be paid for. You know, there's
Balance,
no
yeah,
and if it's not in this lifetime, and to me that's very liberating. You know, that,
yeah.
that everything will balance out, and it's not. There's no personal retribution there to us. You know, somebody slapping us. It's just maybe, as she says, guiding, correcting us, saying, you know, this is the way, you know, we need to move forward if we want to, you know, improve our evolutionary process in terms of providing harmony and moving away from you know, just this gross matter of you know, worship of matter, of material things, effective of the effect on the world, on the planet, as we see every day with, you know, global warming and karma, coronavirus. All of this is really man-made problems. If we work together, wouldn't it be a better world? You just imagine all of the money that's spent on weapons in the world. If you had that budget, what could you spend it on? There would be no starvation, there would be nothing, but mankind chooses not to. Well, I'm not trying to sit on a pedestal here, but mankind chooses to live very nationalistic and you know, what I've got I'm keeping, and there's so much exploitation in the world, you know. So we're hoping that, you know, karma plays its role, and as we evolve, then things will get better.
It's our lower selves, our egos, our lower egos, launching wars, murder, and torture over imaginary borders and control. And I was thinking when you were talking about how people are wanting to right wrongs, the vengeance, remember in the texts and the spiritual texts, there's no reason for vengeance. Vengeance is mine, I'll handle it. Meaning that it's not up to us to settle any debts. Believe me, sometimes when I see people that are behaving very cruelly and selfishly and horrifically, I'm like, that is a hell of a debt to pay. I wouldn't want to have to pay that debt, because it will balance out. It will balance out without doubt. And it is a law, and it doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be implemented by another man. It can't be implemented by another man. It's by your own hand. It's by what you do, you will receive. As you sow, so shall you reap. And don't do to anybody else what you wouldn't have done unto you, because that's not just advice, that's a law.
It's a law. It's a law of karma, you know.
It's beautifully put, a fantastic presentation in there. And I can't thank you enough. I know that oh my God, we've talked a while. I'm sorry. I didn't want to keep you all night. But it's always so fascinating to have you here, Peter. Peter Brierley of the Blavatsky Lodge. Again, tonight's subject is the personality, who you are in this lifetime, what you look like, I guess, what your physical body is like, the interests that you have, the way you react to things, the way you see things, you perceive things through this earthly personality, this persona, as you talked about. This is just for the now. You will continue, and you will have different personas like King Lear, and we talked about Romeo and all that. It was beautifully put as well. So there's lots of things in this talk to revisit and put on pause. I took some photos as you were going through so I can make sure I made some notes. It was beautiful. Thank you very much, Peter Brierley. Is there anything you'd like to cover before we close?
No, just thanks again for having me. Thanks for hosting this. And as I said before, you know, I'm a student of Theosophy. I don't have all the answers.
No, we don't.
You know.
And what he just said there is so important. Please know that anything here on the Living Theosophy channel, or any genuine student of Theosophy, well, they're always a student. We're never going to be elevated to where we know everything. As a matter of fact, the more we study, the less we realize we know. There's so much more that we didn't know that we don't know every day. So by studying these teachings, it's really just, you study them. It's not about memorizing. It's not about an academic journey. It's about processing them yourself. So take the information that you heard in this talk and apply it to your own life and any of the things that you've experienced, great loss and suffering. Try to look at it through with this information as a operator's manual, if you will. And then you put it into practice, and it literally does change your life. It elevates your own consciousness in navigating planet Earth. And you actually, it doesn't make things perfect, but it helps you to navigate these really rough seas a lot smoother. I don't know how else to say it. How would you say it, Peter?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think it, for me, it's, as I said before, the big impact it's had on me really is not to take life personally. You know, even, and that is a problem if you take, you know, and I was reading recently, you know, that, you know, we have this description, maya, illusion, you know, anything that's temporary, like our bodies, is illusion and a personality. But, you know, things can't all, you know, things are not going to be always good. They're not going to be always bad. And it's that going with the flow in life. And I think Theosophy teaches that. You're not going to, by studying Theosophy, going to avoid, you know, going out and getting a flat tire tomorrow. But you know, it helps you understand there is a flow to life. There is, you know, it explains really what life's all about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this ageless wisdom teaches us that you know, we're not limited with time and space in one incarnation. You know, it's like the pearls, they all join on together.
That's a beautiful analogy. That's perfect.
Yeah,
Oh.
so you know, a lot of people are downhearted. They think they're running, you know, they're getting older in life and they're running out of road. And that's it. They should have done this and they should have had more money in the bank. But that's a pointless argument.
That's true. It's true. There's plenty of time. You have plenty of time, and you can always, all of this takes place within you. It's not at a building or with somebody else. It's within yourself. It's the Theosophy takes place inside you. You're the path itself. You are the path. It's my understanding. So you take this information, put it into your being, put it into your life. And if this interests you, then come back for more. We'll have Peter back for more. We have more Petra Meyer talks coming up. We have lots of exciting things happening here on the Living Theosophy channel, and it's getting very busy. So if you'd like to be a part of it, if you'd like to help, we have some things with social media. We'd love to have some volunteers if you're interested, because things are really, really growing, and there's quite a few plates spinning, and it isn't just me here. Although I did start it, I'm just a student, and I'd love to join with you. If you'd like to be a part of it, you're certainly welcome to. So I'll include some links below. I'll also include the links below to the Blavatsky Lodge, where Peter is not only the secretary, but also the president? No, you wait, no. You are the?
Treasurer.
Treasurer and secretary.
Petra's the president.
I know. I can't believe I said that.
I need another 10 lives to get to Petra.
She is a powerhouse, and I'm excited because she does the presentations here from the Blavatsky Lodge are in a playlist. If you'd like to check that out, there's an entire playlist of all Blavatsky Lodge talks. So we're looking forward to having you back, sweetheart. And thank you so much. Thank you, Peter Brierley. Thank you
so much, Anne. Thank you. Namaste.
All the way to the end of the video. Here we are. It's just me and you. I'm wondering if you would please click like and subscribe. That would be great. Click the little purple picture down at the bottom there. It's a very special picture. There's a story to it, but click that, subscribe, click like, if you will. It does something to the algorithm so it can get this video out for more people to watch. And also click the bell notification icon so you can be notified next time Living Theosophy goes live. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.